Hello everyone, welcome back to Ansarkari. So we are starting with a new type of market structure, which is the monopoly market. So when we go by this term monopoly, it implies that there is only single seller in the market, or you can say a single producer. And secondly, there are no close substitutes. No close substitute goods, we can say, which are being produced by the monopolist in the market. And this, the second condition can also be written as that cross elasticity of price is low. Cross elasticity means what is going to be the change in demand of a product with the change in price of another product. So that is very low because there are no close substitutes available or present in the market. So this is the feature. When we look at other features under the monopoly, one is there are strong barriers to entry because there is only one producer. Secondly, there is imperfect knowledge about the demand or the price in the market. Thirdly, we say that price discrimination can be practiced by the monopolist. Price discrimination means that the monopolist can sell the same quantity, the same product at different prices in different markets. So that is one power available with the monopolist. And there is no unique supply curve because of, again, no close substitutes, and being the single producer, you have the power to sell at any price, you have the power to produce any quantity. So these are the important features. Or you can also think that these are somewhere opposite to the features that we studied under the perfect competition also. So these are opposite to that. Now, causes behind the monopoly, let's understand them. So one would be, for example, the IPR, intellectual property rights. When we're talking about like patents, copyrights, these different forms allows the emergence of the monopoly market. Second, when we see government control in certain sectors or government monopoly, we can say, for example, in case of government control, like we say atomic energy, or till recently also we saw that in coal sector it was Coal India, which was a single monopoly player. Third reason can be control over the essential raw materials. This is also one of the reasons how, for example, today in case of rare earths, we see China's domination, where it is controlling 70% of the production of rare earths and 90% of processing. So this is also a kind of monopoly, we can say. Then we say that economies of scale also allows the emergence of a monopoly because the player is able to produce larger quantity, and it is also kind of a barrier for other players because it requires heavy investment or it requires large amount of capital to start the production. And even if you are thinking of entering also, if already a player exists which is producing at larger scale and that allows it to produce at a very, we can say, minimum cost, so that is also an advantage, and this also allows monopoly to function with profit maximization. Another reason can be brand loyalties. For example, if we take an example from real life, Like when we are talking about Maggie, majorly we see the Nestle brand, which is the dominant or the monopoly. And even in case of bread, maximum we see the Britannia brand, which is, we can say, available or most common around. So these are the causes or the reasons behind the existence of a monopoly. Now we will understand few elements, like firstly we'll understand the nature of the demand curve. Nature of the demand curve of the monopolist. So we'll understand this through a graph. So it is the normal downward sloping demand curve. Y-axis we have prices, x-axis we have the output. So the major problem that is faced by the monopolist is to choose the right price output combo so as to maximize its optimality. Like if suppose it is producing at this particular point, Q1 at price P1, and it decides to increase the output, leading to decline in the price. So you will see when the price is declined, this area showcases the loss in revenue. But on the other side, this area showcases gain in revenue. So this is the nature of the demand curve that we can say. Now, a few features of monopoly, when and we'll understand, we will in a way decipher it, or we are going to prove that feature. Like the first one is marginal revenue is less than the price in monopoly market. Now, how is it so, or what is the reason? So simply we know that equation for total revenue is we multiply price with the output or the quantity that is sold. Now, when we say that change in total revenue can be written in two ways, like when the price is not changing, but the quantity is changing, or we say quantity is not changing, but the price changes. So this can be the way of dividing it into two parts, how the total revenue can change. Now we're dividing both the sides with change in quantity. So total revenue divided by change in quantity. Now this gets cancelled because we are dividing with the change in quantity. So it in a way becomes 1. And here we have the quantity. So this is what is marginal revenue, change in total revenue with respect to change in quantity. So marginal revenue is equal to price. Now price, this element would be positive. Change in price is going to be negative because the demand curve is downward sloping. So the change would be negative and change in quantity would also be positive, and this value of Q will also be positive. So overall, we will see instead of this plus here, we will see it becomes minus. So minus of the value that each of these will take. Now we had to prove that marginal revenue is less than the price. You can see that here we are subtracting from the price. Whatever is the value will be subtracted from the price. So it means marginal revenue would be less than the price because subtraction, we are reducing from the price. So that's how we are able to prove that marginal revenue is less than the price. Then we'll understand the relationship between price and the price elasticity of demand. What is the relationship? What is the equation between that? So we will pick up from this equation only. We'll continue from here itself. Marginal revenue equals to price plus quantity, change in price divided by change in quantity. So here we will multiply this section, multiply and divide with price. So we'll see how it is important and why we are doing so. So only this section. So Q by P is one that we get, and change in price upon change in quantity. And here we are left with price, which is to be there. So this part is the formula for the price elasticity, or you can say it is the inverse of that if we have to directly write in this form. So that's a simple formula. What is the price elasticity of demand? What is going to be the percentage change in the demand with respect to percentage change in the price? So that percentage change is written in this manner. So that's the formula. So how we can write it further is price plus price upon elasticity of price. Here we have marginal revenue. We can write in a simplified form. Why we have written minus here? Because again, the demand curve is downward sloping. So this is the relation between price and the marginal revenue. And graphically, we have to represent it. So you will see this is the average revenue curve and also the demand curve under the monopoly. This is the marginal revenue curve, which is also negative. That is why we have extended it further below the x-axis. So this point, when we extend it here, it intersects the average revenue curve exactly at the middle. So here we have elasticity equal to 1. This upper section will have elasticity greater than 1. Lower section has elasticity less than 1. So when marginal revenue at this point is 0, elasticity is equal to 1. So if we say elasticity is equal to 1, marginal revenue is 0. If elasticity is greater than 1, we'll see marginal revenue is also greater than 0 or positive. It means we're talking about this particular section of marginal revenue, which is, you can say, in the positive quadrant. And thirdly, if the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, you'll see marginal revenue is negative, that is less than 0. That is the lower section below the x-axis, this section. So this part corresponds to this part of the marginal revenue curve. So that is the relationship between the price and the marginal revenue. So price is given to us by this demand curve or the average revenue curve. That is why we're talking about the different sections on the average revenue curve. So we can have a short comparison with the perfect competition and the monopoly, only related to the features that we have studied so far. So one, we say that under the perfect competition, where we see that the shape or the nature of the demand curve, in case of perfect competition, it is perfectly elastic, which is drawn parallel to the x-axis. So this is the demand curve under perfect competition. Under monopoly, the demand curve is downward sloping curve. This is the average revenue and the demand curve are same, or they coincide each other. Second, we see that under perfect competition, we saw that the equilibrium condition was price is equal to marginal revenue equals to the marginal cost. And we saw that this graph, this is marginal revenue equals to average revenue. So equals to average revenue also becomes part of it. Under monopoly, we see equilibrium is, or simply we talk about the relationship between price, marginal revenue. Price would be greater than marginal revenue. This we will understand further when we'll talk about the equilibrium under short run and the long run and the monopoly condition. So price is greater than marginal revenue, and then price, again, average revenue is also greater than marginal revenue, because marginal revenue curve is below the average revenue curve. So that you can see clearly average revenue is greater than marginal revenue, and price is also given by average revenue. That is why price is also becoming greater than marginal revenue. And both aim for, under both the markets, we saw the aim is profit maximization. So now we will take up the short run equilibrium under the monopoly market. So there are two approaches to understand this. One is the total revenue, total cost approach. Second is the marginal revenue, marginal cost approach. So we'll start with the total revenue and the total cost approach. So this is to be taken up graphically. So this is how we draw the total revenue curve, and then we'll draw the total cost curve. So it starts from here. Now, why we have taken this intercept and not starting it from zero? Because total cost has two elements, fixed cost plus the variable cost. So this is representing the fixed cost element. For example, rent is a part of it. Even if the firm is producing zero, you have to pay the fixed cost like rent. So that is why it cannot start from zero. Now this portion and here the section from this area represents loss, because you can clearly see that total cost is above the total revenue section. So total cost is more than total revenue, you will incur losses. And when you're drawing tangent at these two positions, where you see there is maximum gap, and the point where both the tangents are exactly parallel to each other, there we see that profit is maximized. So where profit is maximized, the firm will produce at this, for example, Q1 output level. So this tangent is giving us marginal revenue, it's called marginal revenue. So this is giving us the slope of the total revenue curve. So slope of total revenue curve is marginal revenue. Similarly, the slope of total cost curve will give us marginal cost. So this is one approach how we see that the short run equilibrium is achieved at this level of quantity level. And second was the marginal revenue and the marginal cost approach. So under this, we will draw the average revenue curve. We have the marginal revenue curve. This is the average cost curve, and we draw the marginal cost. So these are both short run in nature. So one condition is at this point, you will see marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So this is the equilibrium point. Here we will extend it further to get the equilibrium price on the demand curve. So this is suppose P star, and this is Q star, which are the equilibrium price and quantity. And if we have to calculate the profit, so we will extend it from this point. So why we are saying it to be profit, or it can be a supernormal profit also, because you can see that the price is greater than here. This point is giving us the cost. So price is greater than the cost. So that is why this area is supernormal profit, or it is also called economic profits. So that's how through marginal revenue and marginal cost curve, we are able to represent the equilibrium. Now, if we have to jot down the conditions, one is that short run marginal cost equals to the marginal revenue. And second condition is that when we are seeing this point, this particular point, you will see slope of marginal revenue curve is greater than the slope of the marginal cost curve. How we can say that? See, you can see this is the slope of marginal revenue curve. It is more steep. More steep means more is the slope. And here the section of the marginal cost curve you can see is flatter compared to the marginal revenue curve. So slope of marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost curve at this point. So this condition is also satisfied. Slope of marginal revenue is greater than that of the marginal cost curve. So these are the two conditions that needs to be satisfied here. And also if we are seeing, I've been saying that this is the demand curve, this is giving us the equilibrium price. So why do we say that average revenue is equal to price? So how do we write total revenue. Total revenue is price into Q, quantity. Average revenue would be total revenue divided by quantity. You further write total revenue is price into quantity divided by quantity. Quantity gets cancelled. So in the end, we are left with average revenue is equal to price. So that's how this graph is also representing the same thing. And that is, we can say, the proof of it. Now, this condition was showcasing us the economic profits. You can also draw for the normal profits and the loss condition, how that would be depicted graphically. So if you see here, somewhere this graph is similar to that we drew under the perfect competition. The only difference is the shape of the demand curve and the marginal revenue curve. Under the perfect competition, this was the nature of the demand curve. Marginal revenue equals to the average revenue. And at the minimum point, here we had the equilibrium. So this is the difference just for comparison purpose. So now we will again have to draw the same nature, marginal revenue. So loss, how we will represent loss? When the average cost is greater than the price. This is marginal cost. So here, this is equilibrium where MR equals to MC. This will give us the price point. This is the cost point. So since cost, you can see, is higher than the price, there is a gap between them. This is the amount of loss that it would make. And for the normal profits, this is average revenue. For normal profits, it has to be tangent. This is average cost. It will cross from here marginal cost. You can see both the cost and prices are equal. So when price is equal to average cost, we see normal profits. Here we do not have any area to calculate because price is equal to the average cost. You're not making any extra profits, but normal profits are made, which is a part of the average cost when it comes to the reason behind why firms still manufactures, because normal profits are the stable or the ideal condition where no more firms can enter and already there are strong barriers to entry. Now, one feature that we understood in the features was there is no unique supply curve. No unique supply curve in case of monopoly because of the power of price discrimination that exists with the monopolist. So here there are two possible situations that the monopolist can sell same quantity at two different prices. Another would be you sell different quantity at same price. Here it is same quantity but different prices. I can sell different quantity at same price. So how do we depict it graphically? Or how is it even possible? Fulfilling that equilibrium condition are also met. So this is like we are selling at two different prices. So we will be comparing two markets. So that is why we'll draw a separate demand curve for both the markets. So for example, this is for market one, the D1 curve. Correspondingly, we will have its marginal revenue curve also. Now, another market would be represented through, for example, this is the shape of the demand curve. We just have to ensure it is downward sloping. And correspondingly, we have its marginal revenue curve, MR2, represented by this. So our marginal cost will cross from this. Now, the price in D2 market would be this, which would be given by its demand curve. The price in the D1 market would be this. So you can see quantity Q is being sold, but at two different prices. So this is again possible because of the power of price discrimination. Similarly, here we will see different quantities but at same price. So in this case, again, two demand curve for this is a marginal revenue of 1, then cannot be negative D2, and it's marginal revenue curve MR2. So for example, this, if this is the price line, this is the marginal cost curve. So MR equals to MC is fulfilled here. MR equals to MC is also fulfilled here. Demand curve gives us the price. So you need to just ensure that it is symmetric. So this point and this point will give us the same price, but you can see two different quantities. This is for Q2. This is for Q1. So two different quantities in different markets are sold at same price. So that is why we see there is no unique supply curve. It can take any shape. Now, one more relation, price and marginal cost is there. So what is the relation here? Under the perfect competition, we see price is equal to marginal cost. In case of monopoly, price is greater than marginal cost. How it is possible, or what is the proof for it? So earlier we derived this equation, relationship between price, marginal revenue, and the price elasticity of demand. So elasticity -1. So this is the equation. Now at equilibrium, we say marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. So this marginal revenue can be replaced and written as marginal cost here instead of marginal revenue. And you can see that this number would be, it would be giving us a positive value, which would be greater than 1. So if we have any natural number would be the value when you solve this, even if E takes any value. So you can see that here marginal cost would be multiple of something. So price would give us, price would in actually be a multiple of the marginal cost. So naturally price would be coming out to be greater than the marginal cost because we are multiplying marginal cost with a natural number. So hence we can prove under monopoly price is greater than marginal cost. And if the greater is the value of E, we will see smaller would be the value of this total fraction and vice versa. So we can say in the end that prices is a function of two factors. You can see here one is marginal cost and the price elasticity of demand in case of monopoly market. Also, when we were writing down the equilibrium, there is one specific condition that needs to be met under equilibrium is that monopoly market is in equilibrium when E is either it is price elasticity of demand is greater than 1 or it is equal to 1, but it cannot be less than 1. Now, why is it so? So we can say that since we have seen in the graph, this is average revenue, this is marginal revenue. So you can see that marginal revenue can be negative. But marginal cost, when we were drawing like this, you can see that it is the graph is completely in the positive quadrant. There's no possibility of it being negative. So since marginal cost cannot be negative, and we have to ensure that marginal cost has to equal the marginal revenue. Now, if this is positive, marginal revenue also has to be positive. And we saw when we were deriving the relationship between marginal revenue and the price, that this particular section of marginal revenue curve is in the positive quadrant, and it is always going to be equal to the section of average revenue curve, which is greater than 1. It will intersect where E is equal to 1 exactly. This would be E greater than 1. That is why this is simple logic. Why it will always be in that particular section where E is either 1 or it is equal greater than 1, but not less than 1. And when we say that marginal revenue is equal to 0, equilibrium would be the point where a price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, because this is MR0 and this is, we see correspondingly price elasticity of demand is equal to 1. So we can represent it. So correspondingly, we draw a graph. So it should be like total, yeah, this should be the maximum point of the total revenue. So when marginal revenue is 0, you can say total revenue is maximum. And these are the sections correspondingly. When total revenue is increasing, you can say marginal revenue is falling. Total revenue falls, it would be always in this section where price elasticity of demand is less than 1, or we can say when marginal revenue is always negative, the total revenue is falling. Now we'll quickly just take up the long run equilibrium condition of monopoly. So in this case, this is our demand curve, the average revenue curve. This is the marginal revenue curve. What we see is this is the long run average cost curve now. This is the long run marginal cost curve. This becomes the equilibrium point in quantity. This is the price equilibrium, quantity at equilibrium point. Let's say this is point R. So you can see the one condition is that long run marginal cost should equal to the marginal revenue, and also it should be equal to the short run marginal cost, where we see that short run marginal cost will also pass from this same point S. And second condition is that short run average cost would also be tangent to the equilibrium point, but that is not drawn. So even that is tangent to the long run average cost curve. And third is that price will always be greater than or equal to the long run average cost curve. You can always see this is the average cost curve part. So price is higher than this particular point. So this is representing the profit section. So this is, we can say, the long run equilibrium condition under the monopoly. So that's all. Few part is also left related to monopoly. So that would be continued further in the next part. And thank you so much for joining us here on Ansarkari.